Good morning. This is the August 3rd meeting of the Technical Review Committee. We'll call the meeting to order. First item of business is we've got minutes from our July 7 meeting.
I move approval.
Motion
Second.
approved by Tim,
I'll second.
second by Jason. Have any corrections or? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, please say aye. Any opposed likewise? Minutes have been approved. First item on our agenda this morning is the Goldsby Road Commerce Park, being reviewed by Tim Brown.
Yeah, this item was continued from the July 6th TRC meeting. I spoke with Jamie at Jenkins Engineering. They have a lot of environmental work to do on this project site, so he was in agreement that we should go ahead and table it, so I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay, motion tabled by Tim Brown. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Renee Bradley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? The motion to table is approved. Next item is the Dalton Drive Commercial proposed development, being reviewed by Rita.
Yes, this project was continued from the July TRC meeting. The applicant gave us compatibility analysis, reduced the building size, revised the parking area. The planning department does not have any major comments, a couple of suggestions rather. So we can make the motion to approve the Dalton Drive and move it to the planning commission meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to move this project forward to planning commission, subject to satisfaction of all outstanding comments. We don't take public comments on that one. It's a major development.
I'll second.
Do we have any technical comments? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any technical comments from any member of the audience? Now, this is not a public hearing. It's technical comments only. Yes, sir, if you would come to the microphone.
Robert Raymond, resident of Dalton Drive. The application is technically flawed. They're showing a driveway and the creation of a through street to a beach access. It is noted on their architectural plans as a double line creating a through street. There's also a picture of the current roadway, which is a dead-end street, notated by the picture. There is a request for traffic counters and also a traffic filing with the Traffic Safety Board. We're asking that they take speed and traffic count measurements before anything is moved forward. That's it. Thank you.
Does this come from Marshallville?
Yeah, this is the original district.
compatibility analysis?
Yes.
Is he up in here? Oh, that's what this is from? Okay.
Mr. Raymond, has this been submitted to the community traffic safety team yet?
It has.
Okay, and have they given you some idea as to when to expect a
They have
response?
not given me an idea. The request was made for the counters, and it was referred to Chance, and I'm waiting to hear back from Chance on the traffic counters. You can see obviously that they have the driveway, which is coming off Dalton. So in essence, it's creating a through road and a driveway, which is not. Our previous meetings, we specifically brought up traffic, and you can see from their conclusion, they did not address traffic at all.
Well, here is the problem. There's another village mixed-use site immediately south of the subject site that is going to require a connection to County Road 30A.
I understand that. But there also needs to be analysis of the traffic flow, which is already an issue in that specific spot of 38. They also listed as not being subject to the 38 corridor, which also was not agreed when I made a phone call to the 38 corridor people, which I believe someone from there should be here.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
38 corridor is to be included on all developments that are on 38.
Are you talking about the scenic corridor regulations?
Yes, which this property.
Yes, sir.
is
And in this particular case, the 20-foot scenic corridor buffer does not apply in mixed-use land use categories. There's a
Isn't this
specific
correct?
exemption
Isn't-
for that. It's down to 10 feet in this particular location.
Is it not, it's not mixed use, it's one thing, which is.
The
commercial.
category is village mixed use, though.
It shows on the future land use now as commercial, I believe.
No, sir, it shows as village mixed use, land use district.
Is the future land use plan verifiable? Because I'm.
Yes, sir, I will testify
No,
right now.
you-
I
you-
know.
You talked to me about the village use being the same as commercial, but I think now.
Village mixed use, commercial activity and neighborhood commercial activity is a component of the village mixed use land use district. And that is absolutely the land use category for this development. And there's another site immediately south of this
No,
that's
I
also
realize
village.
ultimately the road may be there, but to not address the specific needs of that road, which is not clearly done in this, would be basically throwing to the wind the potential problems that are going to come up from that road.
So is this page, this conclusion page, this is taken from the compatibility analysis?
That is
And,
correct.
and what you're saying is that the compatibility analysis didn't address traffic?
Correct.
Okay,
Which was brought up.
which is what the concern
That is-
was? Okay.
Yes, the concern which was brought up previously twice was completely not addressed. It's not that we, or I don't realize the paving for Dalton is going to be an access. But it needs to be looked at from the perspective of current traffic counts, the speed, which is already a problem. Because in essence, it's going to make a through street directly to the beach with parking.
But are you talking about traffic counts and speed on Dalton Drive, or are you talking about on 30A?
Well, ultimately, they have 38 traffic counts, they do not have them for Dalton. And they're obviously creating a road and a driveway. So they did not address Dalton at all.
Is your concern that people are gonna use Dalton to access the commercial development?
Well, they will, if you
I
look at,
mean,
that is part of it, but if you
from the
look at
south,
their,
I guess, is
both,
what I'm trying to
their
understand.
driveway shows it going both directions. My concern is we already have South Dalton, which is a problem, a noted problem, including with the traffic flow, accidents. There's a new multi-family commercial built that's going to put another 30A access 50, 100, I don't know the measurement exactly, but 50 or 100 feet away. So you're going to have two directions, and then another one, maybe 150 feet on South Gulf. And it may be fine, but there's been no addressing of that issue by the applicant whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Your request is noted. It will be added to the project file,
Thank you.
and we will get a response from our transportation manager, Chance Powell.
Thank you.
To be added to the record. At the moment, we have a motion on the table to move this project forward. So, outstanding comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just curious, you said you wanted.
Could you come to the microphone, please, since we're being recorded?
Sorry, I'm Greg Thompson, I live on South Gulf Drive.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick, Greg, G-R-E-G, Thompson. I'm just curious, you said you only wanted technical questions, so two parts. One is, what forum do people can comment on the comprehensive plan, since that's provided by the builder or the proposed builder? Is that in this meeting, or how's that handled?
Well, we will have public hearings at both the Planning Commission, which is the next meeting that this project will be considered at, and at the Board of County Commissioners. Neither one of those meetings are yet scheduled. Planning Commission meets the first or the second Thursday of every month. This project will likely, if it's approved today, will be moved to that meeting in September, second Tuesday in September,
Got it.
in this
Yeah.
room at 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock in the evening?
Yes, sir.
Then the other question is just simply on the access issue. I just wanted to know, when I've had a chance to read the comprehensive plan, are they suggesting to have the traffic then go down South Gulf and then up Dalton Drive to access the commercial property?
No, sir. It's going to come right off of 38,
I just
right
wanted
onto
to make sure I
Dalton.
understood.
And the pavement gonna stop right at their development, it's not gonna be.
Okay, and the last thing is, on the land development code and the comprehensive plan, they talk about abutting, it has to state that the scale and uses are compatible with abutting neighborhoods. So in the comprehensive plan, we talked about businesses and things that are not actually abutting that facility. So is that something that's covered here as a technical review question, or elsewhere?
If it's a technical question, you're more than welcome to ask it at this point.
Is that a question? I mean, where you discuss what is abutting the actual proposed project?
Are you talking about the compatibility analysis again?
Yeah.
And what they listed as the
Yeah.
abutting?
There's a lot of inconsistencies with it. I got a chance to read that last night.
I went out there and, you know, weren't they required to have a meeting with the neighborhood as part of that compatibility analysis?
Not in village mixed use.
Village Mixers, okay. I mean, there is a house, you know, when you go out there, I mean, you can, the building really is kind of at a scale with the neighborhood, the house next door, especially with these, large cupolas on, whatever you wanna call them, on the side that is gonna be right adjacent to that window. I mean, just a suggestion for the applicant, you know, maybe to look at this building design and see if they can come up with something that's a little bit more compatible with the neighborhood. Might be something they wanna consider. Because this window is like right adjacent to that neighboring window up at the top of this building.
Do you have a recommendation as to what they might consider?
Yeah, removing these, stepping the building back when it's adjacent to the neighborhood, where it's adjacent to the neighborhood, in sort of a design consideration.
Is the house on this side?
The applicant's
Yes, it's
agent
right
is
here.
here. Would you like to comment on these questions?
Good morning. My name is Neil O'Connell from O'Connell and Associates. With regards to your comment having to do with the design of the building itself, as part of the compatibility analysis, we've included a rendering from the village mixed-use component of the strategic plan, which is the foundation of the compatibility analysis. I don't know if you have that in front of you. but actually in the original rendering for the strategic plan where they're discussing village mixed use, they have that tower specifically in the strategic plan, which we feel like, I mean, that was the original intent. So as far as compatibility, we feel like it's compatible.
You know, given the neighborhood opposition though, you may want to consider that. That just may be something that you can do to make this project a little bit more palatable.
Sure.
And I just urge you to consider that. I think stepping it back where it's right up against houses might help.
Right now, we're actually, I think, close to, we're 20 feet off the back of the property line, off the side property line, plus the setback associated with the neighboring residential preservation. I mean, I don't know that, you know, what are we talking about as far as setting it back? I mean, you know,
No, not just setting back. I'm talking about
The
the
scale.
height, the scale that's adjacent to the residential homes. Because you get a house, you know, I went out there and that's the first thing that stood out to me was, wow, that, you know, there's a house right there. And, you know, we're trying to make these uses compatible and work together, and village mixed use is a great concept, mixing uses, having things that are walkable and bikeable, but those things have to work together. You have to be a good neighbor.
Sure, okay. Well, we'll discuss it with the client and the client's architect and ask them to consider it.
The reason I asked that question earlier is if you read on page 2, they specifically state compatibility. The proposed store will have an entrance off of Dalton Drive. An entrance off of 30A is not feasible because of the close proximity of Dalton Drive to the west and South Gulf Drive to the east. So that's where I'm confused on the technical question, is how is the traffic program flow going to occur when their compatibility report on page 2, the first part of that part, says that it's an entrance off 30A is not feasible. So I guess I just wouldn't like to be.
Right, I think what that's referring to is adding an additional curb cut onto 30A rather than just accessing off of the existing right-of-way of Dalton Drive. I think the concern was if you put another access that close to Dalton Drive and that close to the other intersections, then that does create a potential safety concern. And so I think the compatibility analysis is referring to the better option is connecting to the existing Dalton Drive right-of-way, so you're not creating another access point onto 30A. Not that they're going to come from the south end of Dalton Drive coming through the neighborhood, but that from 30A it's going to come down to Dalton Drive and then into the parking lot.
And part of that intent is to limit the number of curb cuts on County Road 30A and crossing the multi-use path. Both concerns that have been voiced by the public as we've moved through this particular process. And we would not recommend an additional driveway on 30A to access this parcel. And in addition to that, the parcel to the south is going to have access to 30A. You don't want all of the parcel to the south traffic coming through the neighborhood to access that parcel. You want that traffic coming from 30A and you want it returning to 30A.
Well, I understand that, and, you know, it's just again, in that report, they say, you know, this lot is the first lot in the BMU designated area south 38 to build out. So I think making sure it's done right.
Yes, sir, and that's exactly what we're doing, by limiting the additional curb cuts and the additional crossings of the multi-use paths. And we will, when the lot to the west fills out, we're going to be looking for that access to either be coming from Dalton Drive or the adjacent street, depending on the size of that particular development, rather than a new curb cut on County Road 38 for the BMU parcel to the west across Dalton Drive.
So in terms of any other comments about the conference, or that's more appropriate in the commission or planning meeting then?
If they're technical comments, you're certainly welcome to offer them here.
I'm not sure if it's technical or not, so just need to defer.
Well, let me make a
Just send it-
distinction. I don't like it in my neighborhood is to be saved
That's not
for
what-
the
yeah,
public
I-
comment, for
what-
the public hearing.
I absolutely hear, the question I really have is that they've used other businesses to propose that it's okay for this store to stay open to 10 o'clock at night because there's a restaurant here and there. Those restaurants are abutted by other commercial properties. They're not sitting in a neighborhood. They're not actually, you know, and so that's a real concern, even though they're saying we're gonna control light pollution, noise pollution. Those things that they're using as examples of how it's compatible are disingenuous to the neighborhood where it's being placed. And so I'm not saying, I'm just saying that I'm reading their report, and I'm just saying that the cherry picking of examples they've used really is not representative of the structural homes. They use a lot of words mobile homes. This is not, the homes affected here are structural homes. And the lady you just mentioned about the build, there's a house being built right next to that will be 2 stories tall. It's going to see the same big protrusion sticking out of the back of this new build. So, I mean, this is a neighborhood, and I just think the way that report reads, it doesn't capture the right perspective because they've used examples that are just not,
It's not a factual analysis.
it's just not factual. And I'm amazed that in this process that it's not done by a third party. It's, you know, the developer could hire somebody to provide the compatibility study. And, you know, it's like me saying, well, let me hire my own lawyer to say this. There's not an independent verification that people don't have a dog in this fight either way. And that's what's concerning, because if you read that, you think, oh, this seems fine. And there's a lot of inconsistencies. It doesn't even show my house on the plan. And I'm like right by this place, because it's not up to date. So I just don't know if those are technical concerns. I mean, I'm glad that you guys required it, but at some point, at what stage is this the recognition that this is not meeting some of those technical issues? I just don't, I'm trying to understand this process, I guess.
Well,
I'm not saying it's my backyard, I'm just saying.
review the, review the compatibility analysis is subjective review. The county requires the applicant to prove through a compatibility analysis, as part of their submittal, that their proposed development will be compatible with the neighborhood. Certainly the public is welcome to challenge that. We reviewed that compatibility analysis as far as format and standards when it comes to the county. But within the land use this is in, we believe that what has been proposed is reasonably compatible with the neighborhood compared to what could be proposed based on the entitlements in the land use district. I mean, this is our most intense commercial district in South Wall. Village mixed use, and it's been on the map for 20 years. We're just now seeing development happen on a number of these parcels that have sat vacant for a number of years. But this is clearly a commercial site.
And I don't disagree with that either. It's just the factual access of Dalton, which the applicant stated is already an open used access. It's just factually wrong. And it needs to be addressed, not that it needs to not happen, but it needs to be addressed in a manner that is looking at the long-term safety of 30A, Dalton, and all the other surrounding accesses, which will include the Mays property that will also access from Dalton. So it's not that it's not our neighborhood, it's just the data that was provided is just factually wrong, which is shown in that picture.
Dalton Drive right of way
It does have a right of way.
currently exists that
Correct.
connects to 38.
That is correct, but it is a dead end that is not supposed to be used, and just because people
No,
jump the curb.
So I've heard that, and I'm just just out of curiosity, why isn't the Dalton Drive supposed to be used? for
It was
38?
originally, which it does have an
Could you
easement.
please come to the microphone and state your name so we can get it on the record? I mean, we are
It's
taking.
Robert Raymond again. It does have an easement, so eventually, including the roadway, it will realistically be paved. I accept that. It was set by the neighborhood itself with a cul-de-sac, dead end, and, just old.
Is that just because that's how it was? It was never improved?
No, it was never, it is not improved. The road itself, dead ends, there's signage, not county maintained, dead end. So by creating
Okay.
this, we're going to go from a dead end street
I got you.
with the county to an actual access. And addressing that needs to be done, which has not been done, and that was brought up at every meeting about the road, and it's just been
Okay.
pushed off.
Yeah, I was just curious, so
Yeah.
thank you.
And I put a copy of the picture of the dead end sign as well.
Hi, my name is Patrick Lindsay. My family has owned property on Dalton Drive since 1998. Dalton Drive has always been a cul-de-sac. It's never been, and over the years, the county has made haphazard improvements, thrown out some sand. People have started using it as a cut-through. It's always been a cul-de-sac. And I, with several other neighbors on Dalton Drive, we feel that this development, if it does develop, should exit over the bike path and directly onto 30A, and nothing should exit onto Dalton Drive. Whatever happens to the lot behind it, that's their problem, but we feel like Dalton Drive has always been a cul-de-sac. It should exit across from the plaza, across the street, directly across from it, so it'll be more safe. But Dalton Drive has always been a cul-de-sac. The improvements that have been made over the years have just been, some guy throws a little bucket of dirt out there and they smooth it off and people cut through. But it's always been a cul-de-sac.
Yes, sir, but we can't find the evidence of that being limited to a cul-de-sac in public records. And that may be
Yeah.
the practical,
Right.
reality on the ground,
Mhm.
that's what was done. But based on public records, this is public access. And public safety requires that we provide access to this parcel, the parcel to the south of it, from Dalton Drive without an additional driveway cut on 30A to serve the parcel on the corner. Because ultimately, we're gonna have to serve the parcel behind it
With an also,
And the parcel to the west.
and the parcel to the west, and we
This is
want
gonna be the
those
first
accessing
commercial
Dalton
development.
Drive and not creating an additional safety problem by creating an additional driveway across the multi-use path onto County Road 30A in the inside of a curve, for all of the reasons that have been voiced here this morning.
well, also, I think myself and several neighbors who are not here don't think it's compatible with the neighborhood. I realize this is gonna be the first commercial development on the south side. Everything on the north side is being developed. This will be the first south side development, and we don't think it's compatible with the neighborhood.
Yes, sir, thank you very much. There will be another opportunity to voice concerns about compatibility when this project reaches the planning commission, as soon as it's scheduled for that particular meeting. The concerns about the community traffic concerns about the traffic safety will be forwarded to the community's traffic safety team and Chance Powell for a response from Public Works. But based on our current code, the appropriate access for this development is from Dalton Drive. We're not requiring them to pave the entire length of Dalton Drive to discourage traffic from going south and to encourage the traffic to access to and from 30A. And that is the present condition of the project. I appreciate all the comments this morning. Those will be added to the public record as part of the minutes in this particular meeting. And additional compatibility concerns are certainly welcome at the public hearing, both at the planning commission meeting and at the county commission. County commission will ultimately decide whether or not this development is compatible based on the condition it's in once it reaches that particular meeting. But comments from the neighborhood are most welcome, and we appreciate those. We have a motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Subject to the satisfaction of outstanding comments and the comments for today, this project is moved forward to the planning commission. Next item on our agenda is the Peddler's Pavilion Pizza Oven Less Than Minor.
This is a less than minor application to reduce shades at Peddler's Pavilion, adding outdoor pizza oven. This project was continued from the last meeting, and we still have outstanding issues with the submittal.
Good morning.
Good morning. Lois Luzerne for the applicant.
We went out, looked at the site, and, basically what we're showing on the site plan is proposed. It's, except the shades, it's already been built, which is not reflecting on the existing condition, map, which that's what triggered our first initial concern.
And we revised the existing condition map to show those changes.
Not
we
talking
thought.
about the fountain area, but about the pavement.
The replacement of the fountain.
No. The additional, on the existing, we have this pavement area. And on the proposed, we have this additional pavement area, and that's already down on the ground.
Evan Christensen, I'm general contractor for the project. Which area are you alluding to?
This little area up here that you're showing that's proposed,
That's not pavement, that's grass up there.
not in the middle. These little areas up here.
I don't know what
On the existing, we
Right.
show this shape
Right.
right here.
Okay.
And on the proposed, you're showing this shape. This is already constructed. This is existing. It should be
That's
showing.
the square footage there for grass there is more there than the grass there. So you actually got,
Still,
or the grass, I take it back, the grass here is the same as the grass here. So it's the same grass. There's no more extra construction other than just changed a few feet from pavers to grass. And then over here to, there was the pavers came out to the corner here, came out the corner here, just squared. What's the,
the existing plan does not show what's actually on the ground. Your proposed site plan shows what's already down on the ground. And that's an incorrect application. We have no letter, with the latest submittal that the stormwater will,
when we got our CO, we had Jenkins Engineering come out, and we had your representative from planning come out and reviewed the project and looked at it and said there's no more extra stormwater. We do meet the stormwater requirements from the initial development order. Nothing else. I don't know what to say other than.
The last certification from the engineer we got was dated May 20. There's been a subsequent resubmittal. This has changed.
Nope.
Site data table did not change.
From May 20th, that's all been the same. That was from May 20th, nothing has
this
changed.
layout was shown as proposed. This layout just came in with the latest submittal. We have never seen this layout.
This right here, this layout right here was the original sunshades from back,
Yes,
2 years
I'm
ago,
talking
probably.
about the paver area.
right?
Whatever shows here was on our proposed plan in the May submittal. This June submittal shows,
All we were asked to do was, what we were asked in that June was to show everything as it is. And so we did, we came back and showed everything as it is.
I think there's a misunderstanding that's being missed. Melissa Ward from Saxon Sewer. If I can ask a question, if you don't mind. It's a question whether or not the pavers that are down in the square form, there's a concrete section. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's grass
this
right
area.
there.
But here's what we're saying. From May 20 to this submittal that we're considering today, site data table didn't change at all. And we changed the shape of whatever we're doing on the ground.
Okay.
We need a new letter from the engineer that says stormwater is still adequate based on this plan.
Okay.
All of this relates to this plan. It did not change.
What this is the existing approved development order, and just to make sure I'm clear, this is concrete. This whole fountain is concrete. This whole area here, right here, all that was approved as pavers. Okay. And then they have exfiltration system in. this is the proposal that's supposed to be the existing plan, I just wanna make sure.
Mhm.
So this was changed to pavers from concrete. So it's a little bit more pervious just because it's pavers than it is concrete, and then this was increased here. So what you're asking for, just to make sure I'm clear, is that the square footage of this is identified here, and you're saying it's not? Okay,
Correct.
And
okay.
we need an engineer certification that says that the stormwater plan previously approved is still.
We submitted a
active.
letter from the engineer, so did you not get it?
May 20. That was on the previous
Yeah,
design,
that was
not
on
on
the
this
layout.
design.
And with this submittal, we did not receive anything like that. I double checked this morning.
It was the same letter. They provided the same letter for both submittals. So
Okay,
it just,
we'll
the
talk
letter
to the
needs to be
engineer.
updated.
Okay,
And they need to update the data table
Regardless,
for the impervious area.
on your narrative letter,
mhm.
It didn't
does
change.
not talk anything about increasing, the paper area.
We're not increasing it, it's the same square
We
footage.
just changed
It
the
was
shape.
stored in the narrative.
It still
That's the problem.
needs
You
to
didn't
be-
tell us. You just changed the shape and the impervious surface is the same.
Okay.
Okay, so if we update the narrative, that should address that
Update the
issue?
narrative, we need an updated engineer letter.
Okay.
And I think there was something
Yes,
on that.
we had, and we can, I didn't actually type it up since, we will need to make sure that, the boardwalk, the wood is pervious, since the stormwater is underneath. We
That
need
was
to get-
approved in the previous development order.
And it was approved to be pervious. We want an engineer certification that says.
That's,
as
that's not a problem, if he's
constructed-
already put the
As
letter.
constructed,
Yes,
because it sure looks pretty tight.
The gaps are probably about 3/16 of an inch. I mean,
It looks like the boards are butted up to each other from the pictures.
you'll get the letter from him.
we need to see how the open space requirement is still met, and we have concerns that with the original PUD, requirement
We haven't reduced any open space.
since the original PUD.
Well, only through development orders that have been approved each time. I mean, there's
Yes.
nothing in this particular plan that reduces the approved space.
I have a question about the bike rentals. Storage of those bikes, the display of those bikes, is that an allowable use of open space?
I believe so, yes. No one's ever questioned it before, so I don't know why it's an issue when we're not asking for anything related to bike storage. That's a completely
We're
separate
using
issue.
that. Now, my next question about the bike storage is which building is that, are those bikes being rented from?
The first building, right, first one on the southwest corner. There's a bike rental, there's a sign that says bike rental.
I mean, is that what that building's being used for?
That's what it's being used for.
Being used for anything else?
I don't know if it's being used, I'm the contractor, I don't run the
I know.
business, but it is where the bike rental is. That's where people go to rent the bikes and pay.
What is this middle podium? So it appeared that that's where they
I think, can I see the
rent
picture?
the bicycles.
And I'm not the owner or operator. I think what that is, those are just where they set their tools if they have to adjust a seat or something like that, but they don't rent from that spot. They don't have any,
Not from that spot right there?
I don't believe they rent from that spot. They rent from the building. They don't have internet out there or anything like that. They would have to rent. And whether or not they can adjust seats and things like that from there and have tools there, but the bikes are actually rented from the kiosk. Well, that sign, yeah, the sign tells you that's where you come to get your bikes, rent your bikes, but you can go back out there and look at the kiosk, the southwest corner is where the bikes are rented from.
Trying to see if I have a.
Now, would they meet and greet somebody there? They could possibly meet and greet, but the bikes are rented. The actual data from the customer, the money changes hands in that kiosk.
We have concerns about that, and we have concerns about that as being
Well, since we're not asking for anything that's a reduction of open space, and there's not a code enforcement complaint that says we're overusing open space, I don't know why a very minor change to the shape of the shades and the addition of a pizza oven and various small things that we're asking for is opening up the entire PUD.
It's,
That was not our resolution to this issue.
and I understand that, but as we look at this and try to make sure that the file speaks for itself, there are just other things that appear to be emerging, that cause concern.
What are some of the other things?
The additional paver area that wasn't accounted for in the site data table.
It's the same square footage, so
Well-
we didn't adjust the data
That was,
table.
that was critical when calculating, making sure when we put pavers down, knowing that you can't create any more impervious surface to make sure that that didn't happen. We're substituting
Yeah,
shape, doing a little shape,
documentation from the
okay,
engineer.
and the shape, and we'll get Scott to do that, and that's a good idea. But it was just
And
shape.
the fact
was
that the
changing.
narrative didn't mention any of these changes. It's just, we're trying to make sure we're looking at the real problem.
Right.
And we're trying to make sure that when we're done, anyone else can pick this file up,
Right. And
and
not come
see
back to it.
exactly why we approved what we approved. I mean, that is our job, and we're gonna do it.
Well,
And
We'll-
we've
we'll
been
have
getting
some-
lots of help recently, if you've been taking a look at the news, with doing our job. So we're gonna make sure that we do it to the extent that it will stand the light of day.
So you need an engineer stormwater certification that's updated. Make sure the site data table
And a statement that says the boardwalk as constructed still maintains its pervious condition. As approved.
I still do have a concern regarding open space being used for commercial display.
We don't have an open code case on that now, but we are gonna look at that.
Well, as far as I'm aware, and no one has brought anything from the PUD to my attention, there's nothing in the PUD and there's certainly nothing in the code that says you can't use open space
For
for
commercial
display.
purpose, yes, there is. There absolutely is.
For
And
outdoor display.
For outdoor display. And there's definitions of open space, none of them speak to commercial use.
The
And
PUD
outdoor,
was
using it for outdoor display would really be commercial use.
So what part of it is inappropriate since the PUD was approved with 8 kiosks meant for commercial use?
Yes, but those 8 kiosks were like 10 by 10 and a 10-foot concrete pad, and that was the intent.
It was, and the use inside that area be where those 8 kiosks was intended for people and for the intention of the sharing of that commercial, that space for the commercial uses. So the question is, how do you determine what part of that is the same thing as it was designed and what part is a change in that? He's using that commercial space, that he has those 8 kiosks, and that space is still used for all the people that come and go from there. So what part of it is the overrun that you're talking about? If the intention of that space was to have 8 kiosks that were commercially used, plus a stage, plus an area there, whatever they had, and then they had a fountain for kids to play in, and they had all that designed, what part is the overage that you're concerned with?
In the original PUD, there's a calculation table
Yes.
regarding
Yes.
the square footage of the kiosks as commercial space.
Yep,
And it's limited to the square footage of the actual kiosk.
right.
The rest of that space is included as open space. So I
It
think the
is.
question that's being asked is does the square footage of the kiosks, does that limit the square footage of where the commercial activity can take place? And if there's any overrun or overflow from the kiosk of those businesses into the open space, is that an appropriate use of that square footage of open space? I think that's the
That
question.
is-
And
Okay.
that's where we were looking at the overall PUD, that there's, for the entire PUD, there's maximum impervious area, there's
I'm
maximum
aware of that. My question is specifically,
square footage.
where is it the podium in the center that is causing the overage that has got you concerned? That's the
I think it's all of the activity.
One at a
time, please.
Basically, the entire site appears to be used for commercial use. That would make the entire site square footage, which is the 0.88 acres.
With 8 kiosks that run commercially, if the business stays within the commercial unit, there are people traversing across that property. How do you limit it, is the question.
I don't know if the concern is customers or people walking around. I think the question is what they use, how that property is being used. And right now, based on the photos, and if you've ever driven by there, I mean, there's commercial activity outside of those kiosks taking place. Now, if the argument
You
is
mean
whether or
the
not the
storage?
display of the bikes is actual commercial activity or not, that, I don't know. But, I mean, it appears that it's not, that the use, the commercial use that's limited to the square footage of the kiosk is overflowing from those kiosks into what's labeled as the open space of that center.
Can we at least agree that nothing that we're asking for right now is increasing any impervious surface or any commercial, when we'll provide you with engineering certifications on that, or is, increasing any commercial use over and above what has already been there? There's no open code case on that. We will research that and provide you with something to address it, but it should not be tied to this particular application.
I think for us to be consistent with PUD, we have to look at what's on the ground.
There's not anything on the ground that has not been approved
Yes.
in a development order. Well, except for what we're applying for now.
Except for the bikes being displayed across the boardwalk.
So are we mixing the bikes now
There's-
knit with this intent where we're trying to get the amended minor for the sunshades? And, I mean, the original, what started this whole thing is the shape of the sunshades was changing to
Right.
something smaller. And so we came in here, you said we'd have to have an amendment to the minor. And so we came for the amendment to the minor. Now we've taken this amended minor for sunshades, and now we're talking bicycles and commercial. Should we be separating these two things? And one thing would be our sunshades?
I mean, we can go back to
Associated
the
for that
approved
parcel.
development order and go back to the same sunshades with our approved development order. I mean, you're basically saying that every minor change opens up the entire PUD to review, and I don't see why that should be. And there are plenty of businesses all over the scenic 30A corridor that use outdoor areas for display that are technically open space. Are you going to start code enforcing all of them?
We're about to start code enforcing 30A, yes, we are.
Well, when you provide us with a code enforcement complaint, we will address it. I don't know what better to tell you, but we're not proposing anything that impacts the bike shop in this particular development order application.
On the parcel, if you go back to the latest approved layout, you already have something different on the ground.
I understand that, and that was a mistake on our client's part, and I will apologize for that.
And that is part of our concern, that this is a moving target, and we're not catching up to whatever's going on out there.
Well, the
We're
only,
doing our
it's
best to
happening
keep that from
before-
happening again.
It's happening before you're requesting approval, so we're doing ask forgiveness later.
And at one point, all these additions
Well, the
will
only-
go over the PUD maximums, and we're at the point that we want to look at that this might not be going over, but we don't know. We're starting to think that it's getting there.
All
But
of
if
that
we
has
show you
more
that we have
technical
not changed anything from the
grounds.
last time you approved, I don't see how that is going over the approved maximums. If it's the same as the previous approved development order, we're only changing the shape of the shades, and we changed the concrete fountain to pavers, and if we show you that that's the same square footage, it's already approved. The square footage is already approved. The amount of impervious surface is already approved.
And we're asking you to confirm that
And we
with your
will.
engineer.
The question
Because
is,
what we
is
have
that
before us-
sufficient for you?
Has not been provided.
And we will provide that. But my
Um,
question is that going to make you happy? Because we also feel like we have a moving target here.
It's not a question of making us happy or unhappy. It's a question of meeting the requirements of the land development code. And that's what we're trying to do, to make sure the file speaks for itself, and what we approve is what's actually proposed to be done, not what has already been done.
We've had that conversation many,
Um,
repeatedly this morning,
Well,
so.
well, and it went down, the calculations, and it was discussed with engineering that as long as we don't create any more impervious surface, we're just changing the shape. The grass area is actually the same, if not a little bigger, we're just changing the shape to be cosmetically look better than what was drawn originally by the architect years ago. But we didn't create any more impervious surface. The stormwater is exactly the same. We just changed the shape. And we will provide those new calculations, which I don't believe really will change, because it was, when we changed the configuration of the fountain, took the fountain out, the pavers that went in were actually less and more grass went in. So actually you'll see less impervious surface. But we will provide the documentation. And then I guess what started this whole thing was the sunshades, which we haven't even discussed the sunshades yet, which is what we were originally here for approval.
That's the most concern, actually.
Okay, but, so if we give you the calculations, Jenkins Engineering comes out and we give you those calculations, we're talking about this developmental minor, amendment to the minor. We give you the calculations that we're talking about, make sure that it meets what we originally intended, then is there anything else we need on this amendment to the minor? I know you have issues with the owner on other items, and that's something that later you can bring up, but we're trying to move forward on the issues that was this development order.
I have one quick question. Is the display and storage of the bicycles a different use than what was originally approved in PUD?
No.
There was
They're
nothing like that.
approved
in the
for
original PUD.
general commercial, basically. The whole central area was intended to be basically a sort of a commercial center. Activity area, entertainment area.
Open space.
Well,
Recreation, open space.
open space is not the same thing, I guess you would say, as green space. And I don't know that you are significantly decreasing the open space by displaying bicycles on them part of the time, but that is,
We'll
again,
look at that.
something that needs to be addressed separately.
We'll look at that separately. But it is a concern.
And we will certainly look at that and be prepared to address it one way or another.
We'll address the open space, or the bicycles in open space is a separate issue. Anything else on the list here? Really down to three things.
The deck needs to be,
Confirmation that the deck as constructed still maintains its 100% impervious capacity.
Yes.
Second thing is that the amendment to the improved area, still meets the previously approved stormwater calculations in that design.
we wanted to make sure that the stormwater pond was constructed based on the plan. If we had any real inspection on it.
That was already approved and given a CO.
Yeah, that's, what we want is to make sure that what you're doing now still meets
And we'll get you
the
that
previously approved
certification.
capacity of the stormwater system. And updated engineer that. And a statement that this confirms you're still maintaining the required open space.
Okay.
for the PUD.
and assuming we give you all those things, we can move forward.
Is that a motion?
Well, I would suggest that when we get those, we'll look at it, if they are sufficient, then we would go forward with it. I would recommend to be continued at this time for next meeting.
This is a less than minor. It normally would not even come to TRC,
Why don't we
much less 3
make
times.
a suggestion? And I don't want to go back into the reason we're here 3 times being we can't keep up with what you're doing on the ground.
I understand that. We will address that problem.
Please address that problem.
We
But that's
will.
why we keep coming to TRC. Because we can't keep up with what the developer is doing on this side.
And we understand that.
Would you like to make a motion that we move this project forward to development order subject to those satisfaction of those outstanding comments?
I would make the motion to continue.
Can I, the questions that we have are regarding the letter from the engineer regarding stormwater and impervious surface? Is that,
Right.
those are the issues?
I think that subject to these, I mean, we could prove this less than minor development order if we get satisfactory answers to these requests. So I can ask the chairman.
Can I make a suggestion? How long you think your revisions is gonna take to come in? Week?
I would say a week.
A week? It's gonna take you a week to 10 days to get through those revisions, depending your schedule? So if her responses respond to all your questions, could you possibly have the development order ready at the time of the next TRC? That way you get your continuance, you come back, you say all your responses have been met, and be ready to issue their development order. Would that satisfy everybody? That way they know in 30 days they'd be good to go. If they respond to all your questions and this doesn't move any further, that way, if, say for instance, your developer decides to keep moving around on the ground, she's got her continuance in place to say, well, I went out there and this has happened again. And that would cover everybody.
You're gonna swear that you're not gonna change anything, right?
We haven't changed anything since, put it down back in
It's just a
February,
suggestion,
and nothing's changed since
I
February.
know none of us like to go against the planners, you know, that's her recommendation, and that would be a way to resolve the issue.
It seems to me that these are relatively simple things to correct. Either we correct them or we don't. Either we get a development order or we don't. It's not like it needs to be submitted to everybody for another technical review.
And I appreciate that, but the project manager's made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
That would be September 7th.
Further discussion?
I'm okay, I'm good. Sorry.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed likewise?
Nay.
Motion carries. We'll do our best to have this ready, if you can satisfy these comments.
All right.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the Seacroft subdivision, being reviewed by Rick.
Seacroft subdivision, 5-lot single-family residential development, it's been continued from the last TRC meeting. The comments were addressed. Chance is not here from Public Works. There was one concern about the use of Seacroft, which is not in the TRC report that we will probably have to talk
Right,
about.
this is
things
Chris O'Shea with Core Engineering, and I read your comment about that, and that Seacroft is a existing dirt road, and our site, Chris O'Shea with Core Engineering. Our project can either be accessed by Seacroft to the north or Dino Drive to the south.
Right.
Via Luva Lane off of 393. And so, and I'm not familiar exactly with the requirements of the adjacent roads being paved or not.
Yes, that's why I didn't put it in as an actual comment, because you will have paved access to the county road. However, Seacroft will probably, that's what we need to verify with Public Works, if traffic will be allowed to route it to Seacroft since it's not paved.
Okay,
But that's something that we will need to verify. I believe the worst case would come up with that you would somehow would be required that the traffic would go down on the paved road. But
Right.
That should not
and
stop this.
the adjacent property to the west is already issued a development order, and that was a contingent upon their development order. And so,
No, that's why
Right.
it's not in the comments.
exactly,
So
and,
we need
yeah,
to
and
look at.
if
this.
we think of the property owners, I know we can't assume that they're gonna take the paved route, but I would. It's dirty. I mean, I would keep my nice car clean,
Your
so.
concern, previously, the BCC required that Seacroft be paved for the
Right.
previous development approved on this site.
Okay.
To see.
And we
Right.
just want to confirm with Public Works that based on the present orientation of this site, there is not a requirement to pave Seacroft Road. And part of that concern is based on the trip distribution. You're showing trips on it in the traffic study.
Okay, I understand that. Okay, so, the distribution is, we can adjust that if we need to, but and we can get that to you very shortly with our trip distribution to head everything south and make sure it still meets all the requirements for the trip distribution for
Right.
Luva and County Road 303 as well. And I know that there was one other comment based on the setback requirement for the optional accessory structure, 5 foot
Yeah,
setback, and we can
That's-
put that part of,
yeah, that's just so.
That's
you
cor-
will
I
have a
understand
little
that.
Area there too.
and so other than that, that would be the minor change to the drawings.
Yeah, I don't think you need to update your trips distribution because it has to be realistic. You know, as far as the traffic study, you can leave that alone. It's assumed that people are gonna go north and south out of their residential subdivision, paved or unpaved, you know what I mean? So that's, the trip distribution has to be realistic. So we'll leave that alone.
Okay.
You don't, I mean,
Yeah, we'll probably.
the issue with the paved right of way or road, Seacroft Drive, is with Public Works and the requirements that they have for that. It doesn't,
I don't
The
know
trip
that we can just point the trips in a different direction and call that okay.
Well,
That's
if
not
we were
based on
to
professional
prove that it
engineering.
didn't degrade the level of service of the road based on if everybody were required to, that would be the only the other alternative. Just if we were to decrease the level of service while requiring trips to go to the north, and if we could, I mean, that would be the
Yeah,
alternative.
I
But
agree with that. If
5
we
residential
somehow
lots.
would require them to go outside and
Right.
not use Seacroft.
But we
then-
can't do
if
that.
Public Works put like barriers
Barricades.
across there, didn't let them go to Seacroft Drive, then we'll put all the trips out the south end, but they're not gonna
Yeah,
require
we'll have
that,
to
so
talk to
the
Public
trip
Works,
distribution
figure
needs
out.
to stay.
So as far as the Public Works comments on this, what do we need to do to move forward for that? I mean, can we still move on with the planning commission to get these approved and then contingent on that?
I do believe so.
Okay.
But actually, this one doesn't go to planning commission.
Because it's
Yeah, it's
Mm,
it's a
minor.
minor, yeah, that's right. Great.
Um,
My bad, I'm getting ahead of myself.
yeah.
I'm gonna
Rescind that. Back up.
Yeah, we can make a motion to go to planning.
Back up.
Yeah, I was hoping that Chance will be here this morning, so we could just discuss this, but I briefly talked to him yesterday. and
Okay.
We'll just have to have a conversation. I mean, we can figure that out one way or the other.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, and then the other comments were based on the HOA documents, the covenants, restrictions for the plat and the easement, and we're working on those documents, and we almost have them completed. And our attorney would try to make it today for the meeting, just to be here in presence, but he couldn't make it. So I think he's actually watching it live, so.
We should wave.
Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
I had a couple questions on the site plan, if I can ask.
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna call lot one the furthest to the north, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we do have.
I don't know, I can't read. But
Okay, yeah, I know.
it's showing the accessory structure, the optional accessory structure. Is that the only lot that is gonna have that option? Or is that just there for,
The reason why we did that is because we wanted to provide the maximum impervious area for each site, based on our stormwater calculations. So, there's gonna be an option, the intent of that is to have an option for each individual lot, for the property owner that purchases that lot from the developer to put in an accessory structure based on the criteria stated here, so.
okay, so
Not to exceed,
that's just an example of, okay.
that's
And
correct.
then the labeling of the patio versus the pool,
That's also an
that's
alternative,
just
that's
that's just
exactly,
showing, okay.
Right,
I
we
just
just-
wanted to make sure that, I know this isn't the plat, but
right.
we're gonna, if that question's not answered now, when we go to permit these, we're
Right.
gonna look at this, and I didn't want it to be confusing.
And that should also be included in the plat as
Okay.
well, part of the documents, so.
Okay. That was my question.
Okay. Do we have any more technical questions or comments? We have a motion?
Motion to approve the project, subject to all comments and conditions being met.
And the confirmation of the Seacroft Road
Yes.
question
Yes,
about whether that's going to be required to be conditioned.
yes.
Okay, we got a motion, we have a second? Second by Bob. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? Motion carried.
All right, thank you all very much.
Subject to satisfaction of these comments, we'll move to development order. And then we'll be looking forward to the planning line.
We are working on that now, we'll get it to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. This time we'll move on to item number 5, Miller's Crossing, being reviewed by Bob Ross.
Mr. Chair, this proposal was a 72 multifamily townhome unit being proposed for Town Center 1 by Jenkins Engineering. It's 19.66 plus or minus acres. The initial submittal was, there were some problems meeting the master plan for the Town 1. We had a meeting with Mr. Jenkins and resolved all the differences. He resubmitted, it went back out for comment. All the comments have been, there were no comments to saying that it meets the different agency standards. The applicant has committed to a large level of workforce housing. He has also agreed, as part of the master plan, to provide 2 of the choices to make it the multi-use. A wooden trail will link up with the school board property and a bus stop jitney on J.D. Miller Road.
And
so-
park.
And the park, so actually the 3, I thought we were gonna combine that with the trail. But, so they've met they've met the intention of the master plan, and worked with the preservation of the wetlands that comes around the site. So staff would like to make a motion to approve, the Miller's Crossing major development order and send it to the planning commission.
A motion by Bob, do we have a second?
Second.
Everybody likes it, but-
Can you hold up your hand?
Sam, Chris Kristen.
Just one guy.
Okay.
Just 2.
Can I just add
Yes,
one
sir.
thing, just for the record, we have reached out to the school board about the connection to the south, and Tom Blackshear's supposed to get back with us, just to follow.
Okay, they got back with me and they said that that's gonna take a little bit more meeting than what we initially thought, because there's a law, a safety law, that's gonna divide the school board in half. Half are gonna most likely be against it, half are gonna be in favor of it. So he said that there's gonna be more coordination than a simple
That's
call.
fine, he's supposed to be giving them in,
Yeah.
we'll get that taken care of the best we can.
But he liked the idea.
Okay, you got a motion and a second?
Yeah.
We did.
You didn't vote yet, did
No, Scott interrupted us.
Sorry.
All
you? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Motion's carried, and this project will move forward to
I said, through all that other stuff, I had to say something.
You're gonna resubmit a new plan submittal for plan.
Yeah, the messaging and stuff, yeah.
Okay, item number 6, All Good Land Services, being reviewed by Tim Brown.
This is a minor development order application submitted by Jenkins Engineering requesting approval of a plant nursery and landscape contractor business with a 3,300 square foot office on 3.37 acres for the future land use of industrial. It's just up here north of the new light there at Jolly Bay and whatever it is on the other side. This initially rose out of a code case, operating a business without a development order, and I noticed that they keep expanding while we're going through this process.
Don't know anything about it. So, I'll speak to the applicant about that.
Pretty minor comments, 11 from me, 5 from Bill. Other than that, any questions about the comments?
I did, I had just two clarification questions. One, you asked for clarification of sewer availability with City of Freeport. It is not available that far south.
It was just unclear with the documentation you provided,
Okay.
because it said, available for water, but it didn't
not
say,
for sewer. That's
it didn't
correct.
say one way or the other for sewer, that's why I say clarification.
Okay, all right, we'll get you that. And then the second thing was, the 5-foot sidewalk along US Highway 331. You sure? You want
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it's an arterial road. The code says if you're abutting an arterial road, I know it's a sidewalk to nowhere. I don't know if
Today.
that, I don't,
Yeah,
today.
Isn't there like an exception for rural segments?
Yes,
There
and I
is.
was gonna
That's
say,
kind of my question.
you have to look to see if it would meet the definition of rural. Because if you look at that sidewalk section, it kind of gives us a definition of what rural is, and that might meet it, because pretty much south of the bay it doesn't, because we had a request off of, I forget what road it was, but I mean, looking at that definition, it didn't meet the definition of rural, so we said,
Right.
Wayne said no.
Yeah,
But this,
I'll ask a question, because it just,
but that's the only alternative, is
Okay.
that section where it talks about it can be either waived or bought out. Wayne can decide either way, he can just waive it, or he can say you can buy it out, but it has to meet that definition of rural.
okay, I'll ask the question, I'll look it up and see, just kind of see.
No, I get it, I knew you were gonna ask that question, but it's definitely required under the code.
Okay.
We have location of septic tank shown on the plan.
They actually have an existing septic tank that we can show the location of it. There was an existing structure there previously, so.
Yeah, and actually, we're gonna need, I didn't make the comment, but we need the documentation from the health department.
Okay.
That they can continue to use that, because I don't know exactly what it is, but they issue documentation with commercial projects that says you can continue to use those facilities.
Okay.
Whatever's constructed is adequate for what you're going to use.
Yeah, it'll be probably a little less use than it was before, so yeah, we'll get that for you.
What was there before?
A house and then another outbuilding, a couple of houses actually.
So now there's just gonna be the office, so basically just the bathroom will probably be the biggest.
That'll be it, yeah, won't have a kitchen or, shower. or anything. Yeah, should be less intense, so.
Any more questions, Scott?
No, sir, I'm good.
So this is a minor, so I'll make a motion to approve the project pending resolution of all outstanding
I'll
issues
second.
/ comments.
Trying to get in there early.
Okay, we got a motion by Tim, and a second.
I was opening up, so you beat me.
Thank you.
We got a vote.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed,
Jinx myself.
likewise? Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, number 7 on
Last but not least.
our list here, the Price Galleon Restaurant minor revision.
We want to just make a motion on this one? I think there was one comment, and we're getting that in today. Actually, I think it went in Friday without, the owner turned in the architectural plans, but we need to provide our response and a cover letter and proper submittal. But we didn't have any other questions or comments on the staff report.
I'm curious,
And
what was the one
based
comment?
on,
They wanted architectural plans with dimensions, I'm sure, to confirm square footages match what we had for square footage.
based on that, if I not even need to come back to TRC, so I put a motion to continue, but I really only need to get it continued if it does not meet the less than minor requirement. But if it meets the less than minor requirement, then it's not
You're
necessarily.
comfortable going to, not coming back to TRC?
Well,
I mean, if we get adequate responses to the questions that you've raised, and we get that clarification,
is the, sorry, Renee.
Is the concern is that the square footages might confirm that it rolls this over to a minor
Yes,
instead of a less than minor
Yes.
type deal,
yeah.
or major?
It's hard to tell without confirming on, based on the architectural plans, whether or not it is a less than minor or a minor.
Well, are they increasing square footage?
That's what we can't determine.
That
Right,
is
that's
the
the
question.
question.
that's what the request for the resubmittal of the
That's
architectural
why we're
plans.
continuing today, because we need to be able to verify exactly what's going on with the square footage, so.
But even if it's a minor, you could approve it as a minor without coming back to TRC because we don't have to go to planning commission. So just because, I mean, Mac, wouldn't y'all just make that determination and let's complete the project?
Yeah, let's see what we've got, I'm not sure that
Yeah, the addition was a stairwell and an exterior elevator, neither of which go to the square footage of the building itself. They're not included in the square
If it's
footage.
enclosed, it will go to the square footage of the building.
It's not enclosed, it's an open stairwell and like an observation deck where you can
Okay.
come up to the top
And I
and
think
get a
that was the
view.
question.
Yeah, I think-
It-
I think if the architectural is what we can clearly understand. Make the decision.
So if the architectural, the resubmittal verify that it's still less than minor, that's the only question. And then if it
Yes.
verifies that it is indeed a minor, what would be the next step? Isn't it the same step here?
Well, the minor just goes to TRC, which.
Yeah,
Which we're already here.
Right, which is.
This one, but there's nothing really to look at or,
Right, the only change then, if it does become a minor, is the processing would have to change, fees or something?
Yeah.
Would they have to,
And they probably would have to come back to TRC because we would have to process a different application, the fees would change.
is that not something that they could do after the fact?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we need to bring it back to TRC just to change the size of the application.
That was
Right,
the question
okay.
earlier.
We've already got all the submittals that we're gonna need, and it's a question of just confirming what we can't clearly determine.
That would be greatly appreciated, because I know the applicant's eager to
So-
get started.
That would be my suggestion, that subject to confirmation, satisfactory confirmation of the outstanding questions, we move this one to the top.
Contingent on it being a less than minor, and then if it is determined to be a minor, then they would just have to pay whatever difference in the fee would be,
And we can make,
and then,
I'd suggest that we make that a
yeah,
condition of
condition.
DL, that
Right.
additional fees, for the minor application be paid if it, and I don't know what the threshold actually is between less than minor and minor.
We'll Basically, it's any increase in the density or intensity. As long as there's no increase in density or intensity, we process it as a less than minor. But if there is an increase, then it's a minor.
Which is why we're asking about the square footage. That's the question, is whether or not the square footage of the staircase and elevator would bump it over, would increase the square footage of the original.
It does increase the overall square footage of the building, but
Yeah, I think the question of
the
whether or not.
uses of the building
Right.
are
That's
not
kind of the question
gross square
that I
footage
think Rita has for.
calculation.
Well, I
That's
think
outstanding.
also, and I remember looking at this one with you, you were just confirming that the square footage are what they say they are, because the very fact was that they didn't have the dimensions on the previous architectural plans to be able to check them. So I understand exactly where she's coming from.
Okay.
Then I make the motion to approve this application, to not to come back for TRC based on the resubmitted information and verification of the square footage, whether or not it's less than minor or minor,
For the purpose of the
for the purpose of the
confirmation.
I'll
We have a
second.
Second by Renee, I think you got it there. All in,
Well, okay, so just so that we're clear, the motion is to approve it contingent upon the outstanding comment, providing that documentation. If it's verified that it meets the less than minor, then we'll move forward as submitted. If it's determined that it's a minor, then the only change would be the difference between the fees.
Yes.
And that would be a condition of the approval.
Yes.
Okay.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise?
Thanks.
Motion carried.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you all very much.
We don't ever do a motion to adjourn. I don't know if we need to. We do it. The school board.
I did, I called.
It was definitely helpful having this. I felt like it was a more educated discussion. That was the gentleman from opposing Dalton Drive.
Rachel, do we have anything on our peer review today?
Bob has to.
Okay.
Which probably need to.
You're gonna get it with Scott, figure, get that